Yo, 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 yo. So this is the second part of the Sony hack breach. So I went live yesterday and I did the first half of this. So go check that out. It's on the live section of my YouTube page. So go into that. So this is the second part, and I will be discussing again the technical side of breaches and how they happen, and how maybe I would approach a hack as well, or maybe how I would defend it. So now we're on the destructive hard drive tool side of the malware that is inside the Sony network computers. So let's read it. So the hack on Sony destroyed about 3/4 of the company's computers and servers at its central location and erased large amounts of data. So what happened was the hacking group Lazarus, which works out of North Korea, their main attack vector was phishing. So what they did is that they went to LinkedIn, they mapped out all the employees, and they started a phishing campaign. And these emails was a Trojan, an executable file. So one of the employees ended up clicking it, infecting the computer. From there, the Trojan installed a worm, and this worm obviously started scanning the whole networks, and I believe its main purpose was to brute force the server message block on port 445. So I was able to get access to the files of these computers, and these computers contained, email addresses. They contained, the unreleased movies, etc., and other information. So the second part of this malware's purpose was to destroy everything in the hard drive, and that's exactly what they did. So this is exactly what I'm reading right now. So the malware that infected Sony's systems contained 3 components, each of which was capable of deleting data or rendering computers inoperable through changes of physical hard drives or the master boot record. A destructive hard drive tool is the first of these components. This tool was designed to wipe the hard drive and destroy data past recovery, as well as make it more difficult to recover the infected machine. A hard drive is a piece of equipment that stores data long term, as we know that, right? And the MBR is a special boot. It's a special boot sector of a hard drive. Let me see. Oh, so I don't know if you. Oh, okay, so let me see. MBR is a special boot sector of a hard drive. Is a physical sector of the hard drive that contains information about how to initiate the boot process and load the operating system. Without the MBR, the computer isn't able to load the operating system. The destructiveness of the tool depended on the level of privileges or access to the systems the host computer had if the host computer had administered privileges. The tool would overwrite the portions of as many as 4 physical hard drives and would overwrite the master boot record with a program designed to cause further damage if the hard drive were rebooted. If an individual had only user level access, then the malware would delete specific files and they would be practically irrecoverable. But the computer would still be usable. Thus, by overwriting the MBR and deleting files, the malware was capable of both destroying data and rendering computers physically unusable. The difference in the level of destruction, depending on the computer's access or privileges, demonstrates why hackers would have been interested in getting the login credentials of an employee with high levels of access, as mentioned in the beginning of the report. Destructive target cleaning tool. This tool was also designed to make computers inoperable by overwriting its MBR master boot record. Let me double check. No, I'm sorry. Yeah, master boot record. So I don't know if you've ever turned on the computer and then the first thing that you see is a bootloading screen, the BIOS screen. So that BIOS screen is actually responsible of loading up the operating system to running. So that little like blue screen, and it'll give you options. Do you want to do you want to modify the settings of the BIOS, right? Or do you want to load another operating system via USB, etc., etc.? So that bootloader screen is what's actually responsible of loading up the operating system. So that's what the master boot record is. Just to keep that in mind. So destructive target cleaning tool. This tool was designed to make computers inoperable by overwriting its MBR. The malware was installed via an executable file which contained three parts: an executable, a DLL, and an encoded command file. The executable and DLL contained the code that overwrote the MBR, and the encoded command file contained the actual destructive commands that initiated the destructive code. Network propagation wiper. The final component that erased data was a network propagation wiper. This malware used built-in Windows shares to move throughout the Sony network. Using usernames and passwords the hackers had, the host name and IP address of the systems they wanted to target, the hackers would access remote network shares and upload a copy of the malware to begin remotely wiping data in the computers. The malware had two methods for accessing shared files on these remote systems. The first way was to check for shared files that already exist using the files hostname admin system32 and hostname shared $system32. A hard drive does not distinguish between files. It only stores the data. A computer's operating system uses code to organize the space on the hard drive, and it allows programs to see the code through a file system, where each file has a file path, which is a textual way for programmers to point to or reference a location of a particular file. The file's paths can be written in a variable of ways, but the files hostname admin system32 and hostname shared $system32 likely point first to the server the file is located. One hostname, then the user, and then admin or shared $, and finally the type of file, a system, particularly system32, which contains Windows system files and software program files that are vital to the operation of the Windows operating system and software programs. This shows the malware hop to infiltrate shared critical files on computers. So this actually explained a very interesting way to look at a hard drive. I guess let's read it again. So let me see. A hard drive does not distinguish between files. It only stores the data. A computer's operating system uses code to organize the space on the hard drive and allows programs to see the code through a file system, where each file has a file path, which is a textual way programmers to point to or reference the location of a particular file. So I guess the way that you store data on a hard drive, that it's code, and then the operating system gives these specific paths, I guess file names, like a directory, which other programs can reference, which is interesting, right? And as we know, every operating system works in this manner. They all have, everything's a file tree. Like Mac OS X is a file tree, Linux, it also works on folders and file trees, and Windows does the same thing. So I guess that's a de facto on storing data on a hard drive. Alright, so let's go in hindsight and going forward, preventative measures for similar hacks. Ooh, this is going to be interesting. Just give me a second, guys. I'm actually, I just want to check something out real quick. Alright, there it is. We good. Alright, so in hindsight and going forward, preventative measures for similar hacks. Combine the different pieces of malware involved in the hack against Sony enabled the hackers to exfiltrate large amounts of data, delete data, and render a large portion of Sony's devices in their central location physically unusable. Although other hacks have compromised more data or data belonging to a large number of people, like the Yahoo hack, which potentially exposed information of 3 billion users, the Sony hack gathered attention because it caused physical damage to the company's infrastructure and appeared to involve a nation-state hacking a private company to achieve political ends. Since the hack, there has been discussion about what went wrong in terms of Sony's computer security and what Sony and other companies should do to protect themselves. There are 3 significant things that Sony could have done differently to increase their computer security. Use better password protocols. Again, I said this before. Strong passwords can protect your Wi-Fi from getting broken into. It can prevent your user accounts from getting broken into. It's very helpful, you know what I mean? It can prevent brute forcing attacks of computer ports like SSH, Telnet, RDP, SMB, etc., right? So strong passwords really do matter and they help out a lot. So let's read this bad boy. Alright, so when the hackers began releasing the data they took from Sony's systems, the information including a list of passwords. Some of the passwords are only Sony 123 and password. Can you believe it? That's how ridiculous, you see? So the brute forcing worked. You should never have password as your password. Sony with the 0123, that's funny, which are very weak. The leak also included a folder that contained payroll spreadsheets. These were protected by a password, but there was another document in the folder named passwords that contained the passwords to unlock the spreadsheets. Oh, Jesus. Although the list of passwords may have not even been necessary, if it were, they should have been encrypted. That's definitely another way to hide something. There's programs out there that you can encrypt files. So let's just say you have a file full of passwords, right? You can encrypt that. And, you know, to be honest with you, again, whatever password you use, you have to make sure that you can remember it. Because a lot of people, you know, they use weak passwords even to encrypt simple passwords. So there's that. So to encrypt the passwords, Sony could have taken the passwords and added a random string of data to it called SALT, designed to protect against rainbow table attacks, which use tables of hash passwords to guess passwords and then run it through a secure cryptographic hash function, which would change the text into a non-invertible number. It could have not then been returned back to the original plain text, but stable, meaning the hash is the same for a particular password anytime it is initially hashed. The hash of the salt and password should then be run through the hashing function several times to protect it from brute force attacks. It also appears that Sony employees did not use two-factor authentication. That's a huge one, right? Luckily, Gmail uses two-factor authentication. So once you log in using your password, which is the original, the first step, the second one is either a code to your email address that's not your Gmail, the Gmail you're trying to log into, but more you're like an outside email source, maybe like a Yahoo or a Yandex or etc., right? Or just a code to your cell phone. You know what I mean? Like you'll get a verification code. So two-way authentication is extremely helpful. So it could prevent a lot of these hacks. I understand that there's things like SIM swapping out there, but it's still hard to do that. You know what I mean? So that's good to know. So it also appears that Sony employees did not use two-factor authentication, which requires using a password and some other credential, like SMS code, Google code, or a key fob. That's interesting. I never heard of a key fob. And it's a common method to protect access. When the hackers began to release the data they had stolen from Sony, it also showed that, according with their email retention policy, Sony had kept emails from the past 7 years. This data was unencrypted, and it appeared that Sony was essentially using email for long-term storage of business records, contracts, documents saved in case of litigation. Keep less data, and decrypting the data that was kept would have prevented hackers from stealing and using or releasing the information. It also appears that data was not well segregated, which meant that once the hackers got inside Sony network, they were able to move between systems easily, stealing data as they went by, harnessing the servers. Sony may have been able to better protect their networks and keep the hackers from gaining as much access. Some steps that may be included in hardening servers includes deleting unnecessary ports, turning off unnecessary services, not installing unnecessary applications, and disabling or deleting unnecessary accounts. This is 100% key here. All this stuff I love. Again, shutting down ports of computers that you're not using. Of, like, for example, like if you got Telnet just open running, shut that down. If you got SSH and you don't need it, shut that down. If you got RDP on 3389 running, shut that down, right? If you got unnecessary software running on your computer, shut that down. Don't install unnecessary software as well. I'm talking about from like outside sources, right? Because those could be an avenue into the computer as well. So pretty much it's like an airtight. You're supposed to have an airtight like production, like a setup in your environment, right? Like you're only supposed to use the computers for what you're supposed to use them for. That's it. Don't get personal. Don't get cute. Don't add information you don't need, etc., etc. Right? So I like the idea that I like the recommendations. This can make it more difficult to access data, although it is likely impossible to protect against every vulnerability. The chances listed above would add more security to a computer network. That is 100% true. Attribution of the attack. The Sony hack is unusual because it is one of the few cases where the U.S. government publicly attributed the hack to a nation state, as well as because the rapidity of the attribution. On November 24, 2014, Sony realized it had been hacked, and on December 3rd, 2014, the FBI attributed the hack to North Korea, making it the first time the United States has openly laid blame on a foreign government for a destructive cyber attack against an American corporation. It is often difficult to trace cyber attacks, and linking the Sony hack to North Korean hackers require connecting multiple hacks that took place across the world and then connecting them to the Sony hack using knowledge about the other hacks and similarities between them. Determine the creators of the Sony malware. WannaCry ransomware, fake TLS table, Bitcoin, and connections to North Korea. The most convincing link tying Sony hack to other hacks and back to North Korea was the use of fake TLS table that appeared in intrusions at the Philippines Bank and the Southeast Asian Bank. The fake TLS table appeared in 3 samples of the malware called MacTruck. that appeared in the Sony hack. In malware called Cantopy, which appeared in malware used against the Philippine Bank and Southeast Asian Bank, and in the malware Nest Egg, which was used against the Philippine Bank. The table was simply a data table coded in the malware. It had no apparent purpose. The lack of purpose suggests that it was drawn from a control or common library or database of malware, used repeatedly by the same hackers, thus supporting the argument that the same people were responsible for each hack. The data table also appeared in early version of the WannaCry ransomware, but in the piece of malware, it was critical part of the code and used to conduct fake TLS communication. Computers use transport layer security handshake protocol to communicate securely by, among other things, choosing which cipher suite will be used through their exchange. The protocol provides a list of cryptographic algorithms that can encrypt the TLS communications. Each of these algorithms or cipher suites is assigned a 2-bit identification code. A byte of data consists of 8 bits of data, and each bit is either a 0 or 1. That client computer sends to the server to select a cipher to encrypt the rest of the TLS communication. The malware contained a list of 2-byte values that are used to help generate the cipher suites. This makes it harder for network security software to distinguish between legitimate TLS traffic and the malicious software that contained the fake TLS code, which makes it harder to block malicious traffic without also blocking legitimate traffic. Interesting. So you're telling me that this malware will make up a fake encrypted connection with the host, with the infected host, and it would bypass security measures because of that, and it wouldn't get blocked. The fact that all these pieces of malware contain the same data table is important because it shows that authors of the malware samples are very likely had access to the same collection of original source code, which means that if the authors of one piece of malware can be traced, they could be linked to other hacks, and the WannaCry ransomware attacks were linked to North Korea through IP addresses, language fonts, and timestamps. Interesting. So I'm assuming there must have been like Korean, just like propaganda on the malware, because a lot of state-sponsored hackers, they like doing that. They'll say like, this is an example. I'm not saying this is real, but like if Israel created like a piece of malware, I'm pretty sure it would say like, "Long live Israel," and then it would probably be in Hebrew as well. And then it will have the timestamp of a major city in Tel Aviv. You know what I mean? It'll say whatever that time zone is. For example, like on the East Coast, it's EST in America. On the West Coast, it's PST, Pacific Standard Time. So the time zones would have some sort of stamp. And I don't know what Israel's is. European Standard Time, I don't even know. Or Middle East, whatever, it don't matter. So ransomware is a type of malware that once it infects a computer, it encrypts the computer's files and requires the users to pay the hackers, usually through something like Bitcoin, to decrypt the data. The WannaCry ransomware exploited Microsoft Server message block vulnerability called CV2017, which I believe is called Blue Keep or Eternal Blue. It's one of those. And oh man, that's a story on its own. I'm definitely gonna make a video on it where I talk about Blue Keep and how it was wreaking havoc, literally. I mean, as we know, Windows owns what, like 90% of the computer space, and this vulnerability was every computer, before they found a way to patch it, was vulnerable to this attack. So just imagine, right? Imagine having a 0-day where you can exploit a computer without having the user to do anything. It was a 0-click exploit, and I'll definitely do a video on that. So, and had 3 different versions: 0, version 1, and version 2. Some which spread more widely than others. Analysts determined that the different versions of WannaCry were created by the same author, based on factors that included nearly identical core components, even though the source code was not public, similar passwords through all 3 iterations, and similarities in how Bitcoin payments were processed. And I'm assuming that's the guy here that they're looking for, this Park Jin Hyuk. I'm assuming that's probably the mastermind behind all these hacks. When a computer's files are encrypted by ransomware, the computer's owner ought to pay to have their files encrypted using Bitcoin, an anonymous way of exchanging money. Bitcoin is the name of the payment network which Bitcoin digital tokens are stored and moved, all without a central authority. Instead, it is run by decentralized networks of computers around the world that keep track of all Bitcoin transactions. The record that these computers update with Bitcoin transactions is called a blockchain. The blockchain uses a ledger or digital file to document all transactions on Bitcoin. The ledger doesn't exist in a central location, but it is distributed across private computers called nodes all over the world, and each computer has a copy of the ledger. The ledger does not keep track of balances, but rather records requested transactions, and users verify their balance by linking up previous transactions. I don't know much about crypto, but I'm definitely gonna want to learn more about it, because that's how the hackers love getting paid. They love crypto. When users want to send Bitcoin, they broadcast a message to the network saying their account should go down by a certain amount. When users want to send Bitcoin, they broadcast a message to the network saying their account should go down by a certain amount, and other person's account should increase by the same amount, and each node updates their ledger accordingly. To engage in Bitcoin transactions, users must have a wallet, and each wallet is protected using a public and private cryptographic key. The private key is used by the wallet owner to make sure no other person can use the wallet. The owner sends let's go back. I guess I'm learning about crypto right now. To engage in Bitcoin transactions, users must have a wallet, and each wallet is protected using a public and private key. Cryptographic, okay. So it sounds like it's going through some sort of encrypted channel. The private key is used by the wallet owner to make sure no other person can use the wallet. The owner sends a message encrypted with the private key, and then the other node can ensure the message was sent by the wallet owner using the public key to decrypt the message. When users encrypt a message within their private key, it creates a digital signature, which is a string of text generated by the combination of these transaction requests and the private key. And if another person changes any character in the string, it changes the digital signature, which prevents another person from altering the transaction. Transactions pass through the Bitcoin network and reach different nodes at different times. To order the transactions, the Bitcoin network groups transactions into blocks, and each block has a link to the block of traction before it. That's interesting. The group of the creators of version 1 and 2 of WannaCry use Bitcoin, and investigators found that when the Bitcoins were transferred from various wallets to another type of cryptocurrency, the transfers took place using IP addresses that were Tor network exit nodes. Tor is an anonymous network that distributes traffic over multiple computers so users cannot be traced. And transfers for payments from both version 1 and 2 use the same browser user agent string, which may be an indication that the same user or computer may have conducted the transfers. This helps connect the different WannaCry versions. Analysts found that an IP address used for a command and control in connection with version 1 was accessed by North Korean IP addresses. This means that one of the computers that had controlled the WannaCry ransomware was also connected to a computer in North Korea. Supporting the belief that North Korean hackers created and used the malware. Further investigators found that the individuals with a North Korean IP address had been researching how to develop code that would exploit the CVE 27. Okay, that I think it's either Blue Keep or Eternal Blue. I don't know which one. That version of 2 of WannaCry used. They found that the users of the same North Korean IP address mentioned above visited technet.microsoft.com, where Microsoft provides information about Microsoft products, including vulnerabilities like the CVE 2017-0, whatever, and other websites with information about the vulnerability. The FBI Cyber Behavior Analysis Center found that the computer was used to create the WannaCry ransomware language files had the Korean language fonts installed because of the rich text format tag fchar set 129, which is not usually part of the default installation in the US, but it includes in a Korean installation. Rich text format is a file format for text and graphics. The language files of each version of WannaCry had an RTF tag that contained a timestamp. The timestamps led the C-Bank to think the computer may have been set to the time zone used in South Korea. The same time zone was also used in North Korea until 2015. The above evidence and other evidence that does not appear in this review ties the different versions of WannaCry together and ties them to North Korea. In turn, the fake TLS table used in WannaCry ties the Sony hack to the WannaCry ransomware and thus back to North Korea. As you can see here, this is what the infected computer with ransomware looks. Oops, your files have been encrypted. What happened to my computer? It's a little blurry. Your important files are encrypted. Many of your documents, photos, videos, and databases or other files are no longer accessible because they have been encrypted. Because you are busy looking for a way to recover your files, but do not want your time, nobody can recover your files without the decryption service. Can I recover my files? Sure, we guarantee that you can recover all your files safely and easily, but you have not so much time. You can try to decrypt some of your files for free. Try now by clicking decrypt. If you want to decrypt all your files, you need to pay. You only have 3 days to submit the payment. After, the price will be doubled. Also, if you don't pay in 7 days, you won't be able to recover your files forever. How do I pay? Send $300 worth of Bitcoin to this address. $300? I was expecting a lot more, not gonna lie. Alright, so let's keep reading this. Other connections between the WannaCry ransomware and the Sony hack. Analysts found that other links between the WannaCry ransomware and other hacks, the Sony hack in North Korea, for example. A report from Symantec, a cybersecurity company, reported that they found 3 pieces of malware on a victim's computer from WannaCry version 0. And found 2 variants of the malware, Backdoor Destover, which also used against Sony. Also, a sample of the WannaCry malware used the IP address 8492.36.96 as a command and control address. And in February or March 2016, a North Korean IP address connected to that IP address and connected to a compromised computer that was infected with malware connected to the Sony hack. These similarities and others are beyond the scope of this discussion, are convincingly evidence to connect the Lazarus Group to the Sony hack, and in turn connect the Lazarus Group to North Korea. The graphic below showcase in more detail the connection between malware and email accounts to help attribute the Sony hack to the Lazarus Group. Conclusion. And the 2014 Sony hack caught the attention of the world because of the damage it did to a large company, both in terms of stealing data and, more unusually, making physical infrastructure unusable. The hack became even more unusual when the U.S. government took the step of publicly attributing the hack to North Korean hackers. This paper reviews some of the technical details behind the hack on Sony and a portion of the work investigators and analysts undertook to attribute the hack to the Lazarus Group and North Korea, demonstrating the variety of knowledge and skill set that went into carrying out the hack and the methods used to trace it. Interesting. So this would be nice to kind of piece together, but I'm assuming the same hackers who got the Philippine bank or whatever, Bangladesh bank, use the same malware here to get to Sony. Here's the reference page. So yeah, there you go, guys. As you can see, right? I mean, hackers work in the weirdest ways to try to get into a system, and they'll do whatever they gotta do. You know what I mean? This hack, in my opinion, was mostly done from like a sorry, it was mostly done for political reasons more than financial reasons, which I find interesting because the fact that this group had system access to Sony, they also could have extorted them after taking the data. They could have just taken everything and said, you know what, not only are we going to take your data, but also you want your computers back, we're just going to encrypt all of them. But instead, they just wiped everything off. They just wanted to kind of like stick it to them and be like, here, you know, take this, mother effer. We're gonna F you over like this. And that's what they ended up doing. They pretty much showed Sony who's boss. Not gonna lie, you know, a very sophisticated hack, one that worked, one that will go down in history for sure, and one that Sony will always remember. I don't see how they wouldn't. But after that hack, I'm pretty sure they're more secure about stuff. I'm pretty sure Sony every day consistently tries to get hacked again. Like and it might not even be North Korea itself. It could be some scammers from Africa, some scammers from India, and especially a lot of these people are learning the art of cybersecurity and red teaming, so they could use their skills to hack into these networks of these computers of these billion-dollar companies and extort them. And I see that shit happen all the time, honestly. Like, I'll get like I see some like very good sophisticated phishing attacks. For example, I saw one that was using a VIOP phone number, and I got a text message, right, from a VIOP phone number, and this VIOP phone number actually, the area code that it came from was actually one number off. So I live in, let's just say, for example, I live in New York City, right? The area code over there is 212. So this phishing VIOP number was actually 213, right, for example. And then it had a link to the DMVs. Like, it was pretending to be for the DMV. And it would say, hey, we need you to update our information. Yeah, excuse me, you need to update your information. Please click the link, right? So out of curiosity, and I would never recommend you do this, is that I emailed myself that link I ran it through Virus Total. Nothing came up. I ran a Whois request to see if where the website was coming from, who registered, etc., etc. So somebody legitimately registered that website, but in my opinion, I think they used stolen credentials. And the website was a phony DMV website that wasn't from California. I remember. And when I clicked on it, it was pretending to be for the California DMV, which obviously it wasn't. The link, the domain didn't make any sense. It was something weird, and it was asking for my information, and then it was asking for a payment method. So these fake phishing domains, they'll gladly take all this information that you put in it, and then somebody will use that in a later either to buy something, you know what I mean, under your name with your identity somewhere in some other country. And yeah, that's how phishing works, you know, like this. It's a very sophisticated thing. So alright guys, so that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed my live. I'm gonna try to go live as much as possible, and just go over anything I can think of, you know, when it comes to like cybersecurity related, right? I'm also currently reading books on like, you know, exploitation, and I'm reading books on understanding technology, like web technologies. The HTTP Definitive Guide is a good book. I would recommend that one. I'm reading that one as well. I'm trying to understand the web a lot better, just so I could do like bug bounty hunting live on stream, because I want to understand what I'm trying to break, you know what I mean? Like I don't like just throwing payloads at parameters that might be vulnerable. I actually want to understand the technology that I'm looking at and how it could be vulnerable and how it could be broken. It doesn't necessarily have to, you don't necessarily have to throw a payload at something to break it. There's always some logic flaws sometimes, and you can figure out a way to break it without really throwing payloads at it. Maybe you brute force a access token. You know, I don't know if you ever logged into a Facebook page and then you left and then you came back and you're logged in. So your browser saved the access token that the backend server knows who you are, so that's how they're able to save you your account. So if the access token is a certain length of characters, maybe you can develop a program that brute forces those characters, and then you can kind of feed it to the server and see if maybe you can log into somebody's account. That's also a bug as well. And it's not necessarily that you're throwing a payload at something, but you're brute forcing your way in, you know, if that makes sense. Alright guys, I'll probably do either a stream today or a stream tomorrow. Don't forget to hit the like.